Hello everyone, my name is Sind, and today I'm here to bring you the follow-up guide to my arrow totem build for Thea, Incarnation of the Gods. To start with, I have a little disclaimer to put out there. All of the gear in this setup has been completely solo self-found. All the gear, all the materials used to craft. Nothing was bought through the action house or given to me by any friend or guildmate of any kind. Everything has been acquired through the shops that are around, like the Black Market or the Cube Shop, as well as from interacting with the League mechanic. This was a challenge that I put to myself, as usually I like to play SSF variants of ARPGs to League start, as a way to learn about the League mechanics, learn about the game, as well as allowing me to see where I can push a build, or at what point does it feel comfortable to farm content with it. So to get right into it, looking at the setup for the skills that I'm using, I'm currently using two totem setups. One with 5 links, the other one with only 4. I didn't get to unlock 4, but the support skills would be the same for both. So to begin with, I use Wind Proj, Slow Proj, Attack Focus, Multifaceted Guard, and Crit Strike Damage. There's people also using Tenderize as well as Mark. I'm not using any of those. To me, this was the setup that worked the best, so that's what I went with. Next, I'm using Burst of Anger because it gives you a big amount of attack speed as well as move speed, very solid. As well, linked to Mass Effect for an extra charge, increased effect, Overclock for increased damage of other skills, as well as Well Fought Battle for increased effect as well. The reason why attack speed is so good is because if you come here and read the gem, it says that the base entry cast frequency is equal to 100% of the average weapon attack speed. So that means attack speed is going to scale the casts of the totem. This, in combination with a passive tree node that we'll talk about later, make attack speed incredibly powerful in scaling the damage of this build. Next, I use a restoration skill. I use Life Source. You can use the bottle that you get from level 1. It doesn't really matter, it's preference. I like Life Source, and the main supports here are Residues, so it doesn't get removed when you reach full life, as well as Berserk. Berserk is very good because it gives you attack and spell crit, and this is a crit build, so the more crit strike chance, the better. Lastly, I use a blink setup with CDR and quick mobility. Periodic Burst is also a very good support because it gives you a tiny window of extra attack speed. Very solid. There's quite a few people using, instead of Life Source, they're using Aim because it's a projectile. Aim, the buff that it grants, gives you a large amount of damage. If you are at a point where you're comfortable with the build and you just want to get the maximum DPS you can use, you could use Aim with probably Mania linked to it, and that would give you another chunk of damage. For the auras that I'm using, I have Weapon Amplification, gives you physical damage and attack speed, and Precise Projectiles gives you projectile damage as well as projectile speed. Here we have a 40 on hit. It triggers when you hit Elite, Fixate, and Overclock. Keep in mind, Overclock doesn't really make a big difference in losing the buff, because when you, especially on single target, when you are hitting a boss, you only need to cast your totems once every 11 seconds or so. So you should have the buff for most of the time you're fighting stuff. Lastly, I have a cast on crit setup with vulnerability, abysmal hatred for increased curse effect, as well as reserving decent life. As you can see, it's only 7% of your life. If you have a decent life pool, that's not a big deal. You can get away with it.
In my childhood, I built towers in the courtyard.
So, in the passive tree, very straightforward. We go God of Machines, and we take everything that gives you sentry damage, or anything sentry related, really. Sentry damage, sentry skill cast frequency, and on the big nodes, we take sentry here. There's some thought to be given to use shrink back, but I'll mention that a bit later. And here we take overly modified. It's the only realistically node that you get. Both of the other two apply to minions, and you're not using a minion, using a sentry is not quite the same. Machinist, mostly same story. You take everything with sentry on it. You take some life nodes here as well, but mostly just, it says sentry, you click on it. It's very straightforward, very simple. I take some armor, some elemental resistances. These two nodes here are the one thing that I would recommend very much. They give you the three ones here give you barrier absorption, and this one grants you a barrier when you use a sentry skill. Now, because you're using sentries all the time, you almost permanently have a barrier on you. It gives you a nice extra layer of defense. Feels very good to have. Then we grab some max life, some regen, and here we just have more sentry stuff. Very straightforward. On the big nodes for the machinist tree, we take heating up. Really the only one in this trio that you even should consider. Here we take resonance, incredibly powerful, and this is where the attack speed bonus is scaling your sentry damage. As it says, attack speed bonus and 100% of additional bonus are also applied to attacks sentry's cast frequency. Very good. As well as in the end, the cast speed doesn't really make, you don't get a lot of cast speed, so it doesn't matter a lot, but for those nodes that give you both attack and cast speed, it's an extra added buff. It's good. It's just a very good node. And lastly, it gives you a 25% chance for the sentries to deal double damage. Probably the best node you're getting out of the trees, in my opinion. Incredibly, in terms of power. The last tree does a few options. I started out with Onslaughter. I still think it's a good tree. You scale it through attack damage, attack speed, crit, attack damage, additional damage for weapons, and then you take this added attack speed base for your weapon, and then just scale it through attack speed and attack damage as well. Very straightforward. On the way there, you grab some defense nodes, you can grab some area, can grab some regen if you want. I'll leave that up to you. I'm sure if you feel like you need more life, you can take more life nodes, you can take more regen, more armor. I'll leave that to the people's description, as every build is different from each other, obviously. For the big nodes in this tree, the first three, there's only one real option, momentum. It increases the attack damage for the next main skill you use. It's okay. It's nothing to write home about, but it's fine. This one, no loose ends, a lot of crit rating. It's very good, as long as you can keep yourself at 95% or more. And that's pretty much it. For Onslaughter, I would say the big nodes are mostly locked in. There's not much you can do with the other ones. I ended up swapping to Ranger because this scales a lot of projectiles as well as a couple other things. It gives you massive amounts of crit in this tree. Massive amounts of crit. It's very powerful for that. As well as damage and more life. More percentage increased life than Onslaughter would give you. those were the two main reasons I swapped to Ranger, as well as I wanted to test out this big node, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Just here you just take projectile damage, attack and cast speed again, some life, some more attack speed, more crit. These last nodes are very good. This one is just a massive amount of crit strike chance and crit damage, as well as skull for enemies under 8% as long as you crit them. I end up with about 50% crit when I have my buffs up. And because the sentries are attacking so fast and I have 4 sentries, almost guaranteed to kill things. Lastly, these 3 nodes give you a chance to cause knockbacks. This gives you knockback distance, and then this node adds an extra scalar to a build with 100% of the effects of knockback distance also applied to attack damage. It's not massive, but it's an extra added scale. It's good. You should take it, in my opinion. On the big power nodes, the first 3, not much to be considered here. If you have Fervor, maybe Fluke could be very strong. I don't have Fervor, so I went with shooting arrows. It's the easy one. Also scales knockback. Just a good node. Does everything we want it to. Here, all 3 are interesting. Keep it up. It's only interesting if you have Fervor. So again, if you have that, consider keep it up. Impending is not bad. Sometimes staying next to the bosses is difficult. It's conditional. It's not as good, in my opinion, compared to rapid shots. Rapid shots, if you play PoEs like Far Shot, it increases the damage based on the distance traveled of the projectile. It's the thing I've been going with. Impending, there's some conversation about it, but as I'm learning fights and I'm trying to maneuver around abilities and stuff, it feels like I'm always dropping this buff, so I ended up moving away from it. For the statue of the new god, I don't have anything good to showcase here, I'm sorry. I have some area damage, projectile damage, attack and cast speed, physical damage, again attack and cast speed, skill radius, area damage, some armor and evasion, nothing crazy that I found. Life, energy shield, attack speed. There's a few good things that you could get here. There's sentry damage. There's also very powerful maximum blessings, and I believe that blessings are how you would scale this build in a later, more investment way of scaling the build. So I believe that's where you should go if you're looking into invest even further. Other than that, crit is also very good. There's some new gods, these new gods of order and chaos. There's some stuff that could be good here, but I haven't found anything worth mentioning, so I'll leave that to your guys' description.
In my childhood, I built towers.
Lastly, the items. So for the items that I have, everything has been self-crafted, as I said. It's very simple, but let's go through it. First, Chins of Resistance. You can get this very early on. It's a decent amulet. I've been using it for the most part. It gives you some life, attack and cast speed, skill radius, area damage for bosses specifically, which is where you need most of your damage, so a good one. Sadly, didn't get the corruption on the area damage, but it's still a good amulet to use. Other than that, the scaling is going to be very similar on all my pieces. It's armor with crit, strike, implicit, percentage life, maximum life, resistances. I wanted this to hit physical, it didn't hit elemental. I left it there because I scale a little bit of elemental, not much, but I have a little bit of my gear. Chest piece, again armor, percentage max life, crafted physical damage, I have resistance, I have crit, I have erosion resistance, which is also very good, and I don't have much. Here we have energy shield. I would rather it was armor, but it's the one I got. It comes with a bit of flat, some life, some crit, some resistances. Same thing here. Armor and evasion, physical damage, resistances. Movement speed, resistances, physical damage. My rings both are pretty decent. I have a bunch of flat on both, some maximum life, a bit of resistance. I could use better suffixes on here, but I didn't bother crafting them any further because I didn't feel like I needed it for the resistance side. Here, more flat, some resistances, and finally you need to use either a bow or a crossbow. That's the only way the skill works. You need to use one of those weapons. Here I have a crossbow with implicit physical damage. I have physical damage flat to the gear. I have projectile damage. I crafted gear physical damage. I have gear attack speed. This node is not very good for me. I would much rather have critical strike chance, but it was a very solid weapon. I didn't want to risk messing it up, so this is where I'm at. And then I crafted some critical strike damage as well. So here's the stats for it. If you are a numbers cruncher and you want to see what things look like, this is with no buffs whatsoever, as I'm sure you're aware.
In my childhood, I built towers in the court.
For the hero traits, in the relics, there's not much to mention from what I got. I have a bunch of attack and cast speed on all of them, some damage, some crit, cooldown recovery, nothing worth calling home about really. This node is the one everybody gets. You deal additional damage to enemies on full life per agility, and additional damage to low life enemies per tenacity. And then you flip-flop agility and tenacities when you're inside or outside of the realm. Here I take this node. The autocast just gives you a bunch of quality of life, as well as gaining a big amount of additional damage when the Divine Realm is active. This node applies the increases to tenacity. Blessings also apply to agility and vice versa. Just a good node, also not a choice, so not much to mention here. On the 62 row, I take Divine Realm balancing. Almost everybody is taking Divine Realm power. In everything that I have tested, this felt much better, but I also haven't gone deep into the blessing stacking side of this hero trait. So obviously, as you read this, you'll understand that the more blessings you stack, the more powerful this node becomes compared to this one. I, throughout my whole testing, I should say, felt this was better, so this is the one I've been using. And lastly, Incantation of the Gods is realistically, between these two, the better one. It's just the better one in my opinion. 7% per stack of blessing. Same thing as Divine Realm power. The more blessings you scale, the more powerful this becomes. Very good.
The stars spiral eternally, never resting.
For upgrades, where I think the build could go from here on, there's a few items that I think are very solid. First, if you go here to the auction house, Imperial Iron Sentry. This allows your crit become the base crit to the sentry, as well as giving you the sentry node on your passive tree. So as I was mentioning, on your passive tree, here you take sentry. Because it's already on the helmet, if you take that helmet, then you can take shrink back and just have a 35 permanent chance to gain a barrier whenever you take damage. That's the only reason not to use sentry, otherwise always take this. Other than that, we have an amulet, which is also pretty good, and you should almost always take it. Vortex Art. The focus is strike. It's an area skill. Enemies in the center are gonna take 40% additional damage. Great amulet, as well as giving you crit and flat. Just a better version of the amulet I'm using. Unfortunately, I didn't drop one, so I didn't use it. After that, there's a few ways to scale the build. In my opinion, the better way you could scale it is by going deep into blessing stacking. Obviously, that requires a lot of investment. There's a few people, if you go into the hero rankings, that are doing very impressive stuff with this new hero trait. So if you need inspiration, go check there. But items like Chaotic Ending with +1 to traits, or sorry, not to traits, +1 to max blessings are very powerful. There's also a new, there it is, no, not this, here, yes, here. There's also this new Crossing the Divine Threshold. This also allows your focus blessings to scale the agility and tenacity blessings. It's incredibly expensive. I believe it's offering around 500 FE on the cheaper side of things, right? So it's incredibly expensive, but it's a very powerful thing to have. So if you're gonna go deep in investment in this, consider this. Otherwise, there's better ways of scaling blessings that you could look into. Some of those, like I mentioned, the passives here for the new cube mechanic, you can get a bunch of max blessings here. But yeah, this is level 94, and now just for a quick showcase of a map, we have a map over here. This is Timemark 7, and I rolled this with a few mods, just 60/60 quantity, just for a quick showcase of how the build plays in a map, just farming content. So you go in, you jump, you put down your sentries, they kill the things, and you just worry. Oh, a statue, nice. And you just worry about picking up your loot. Make sure if you ever dip low, make sure to use your healing from your life source or whatever version of a restoration skill you're using. If you're not, just be a bit more careful, but you should be fine. And yeah, it's just all around solid build. Farms fairly quickly. It's not super fast, but it's also, in my experience, very safe. You don't actually need to be in the action. You just stay back, pick up the loots that fall, and overall just a grand time while playing this build. It's really been an enjoyable league start for me. Goddess of Blessing, we take the best things. Let's take some fuel here. Hopefully you get some extra stuff for my next build, which I'm gonna talk in a little bit. And yeah, there we go. An Elementium, not bad. And yeah, the cube, of course. Come on. Ooh. Anything good? No. Yeah, flame fuel is not bad, suppose. Now, for the people that are interested, this is my tree at the moment. I just went with this, seemed pretty good. And it's actually pretty noticeable as well. So if you're looking for anything, I went with this. Greed, always lose as well. And yeah, that's pretty much how the build plays for the most part. Other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. I'm gonna leave this build here, as I wanted it to be able to farm Timemark 7 comfortably I feel like I achieved that. I enjoyed it. I did it SSF as I wanted, and now I'm gonna be playing a different build. I'm gonna try out the new summons, the Grim Phantoms, because I believe, if my understanding works correctly, with the charge calling from Motto, it should allow you to essentially make a auto bomber, and I want to see how that works. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. Hopefully it'll be fun. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. Thank you so much for watching. Toss a like and a sub to the channel. It will help me out grow a lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.